Hi there and welcome back to my channel. This is Sean, the Honest Book Reviewer, with another book review. In this video we're discussing The Gathering, written by CJ Tudor. It's a horror. It's a vampire horror, not just your everyday vampire horror though. It's a vampire horror murder mystery, and I enjoyed this a lot. It's set in an Alaskan town, very isolated, very small town as well. And the world building in this book is amazing. The mystery is amazing. It's a present day and a cold case mystery combined. I enjoyed this so much. It's a wonderful story. The setting for this book is in Alaska, in a small town called Dead Heart, population 873, living people that is. And the setting is amazing. It's isolated, it's cold, it's snowing. The whole town feels like it's cut off. And not far from the town is a vampire colony. So in this world, vampires have been known by humans for decades, even centuries. And humans have been forcing vampires out of their territory, out of their lands for decades. And it feels like it's still going on in this world in the present day. And near this town of Dead Heart, there was a colony of vampires who lived in this area, and then humans discovered minerals there. They wanted to put mines there. They forced the vampires out. That's part of the history of this book. And then the vampires, they want to come back and take back that area where the mines are, because the mines are abandoned now. There's buildings there and things like that. Nobody's there. And the vampires want to come back and just rebuild their colony there. But the humans don't want that. They feel afraid. So even though this book is a horror, it's also a murder mystery. And in this book, we have a teenage boy, being discovered as being murdered, and they suspect a vampire killed this teenage boy. And we have certain people in the police force who are experts in vampire crime. And the protagonist is one of those people. And Barbara Atkins is an amazing character. And when she first arrives in town, this small town called Dead Heart, characters confront her. Even like the mayor of the town, who's not really the mayor, but people call her the mayor anyway. People confront her and they demand a culling. And a culling is when humans can go and just start killing vampires, or killing vampires they think are guilty of crimes. It's happened at certain times in history in this story, not many times, but for there to be a culling, then somebody has to give authority. And Barbara has that authority. If Barbara finds that a vampire killed this teenage boy, and she finds that people in this town are in danger from the vampires near this town, then she can authorize a culling. She's being pressured to do that from many people in the town, even her superiors. But what I like about this character Barbara in this book is she's careful. She wants to find out the truth. And she's being very careful about this crime. Even with all these pressures, people almost yelling at her, demanding she have this culling. She's saying no. She's sticking to her guns and saying no in this book. In this book, we also have a cold case that happened around 20 or so years ago. The current sheriff wasn't involved in that case, and in this book the current sheriff gets injured, and so Barbara needs somebody helping her, and she convinces the ex-sheriff, the person who was involved in that cold case, to come and temporarily help her. And that's interesting in this book because this character has secrets of his own. This character is tied into that cold case very deeply, has deep connections to it, and maybe have connections to the present day case as well. But in my view, this character who's called Tucker, he's an amazing character, and this book wouldn't have been as good as it is without this character playing a big role. I think this character coming into it makes it even better in this story, and I like the way Tucker and Barbara Atkins, they interact. And another thing in this book that makes it so good is the way this town is constructed, including the characters. One character in particular is like a preacher. She kind of flew into the town a few years ago and built this church. And she has been attracting people who hate vampires to her church. She preaches violence against vampires to them. She preaches hatred against vampires to them. And just attracts those kind of characters in the town who want that. And the last big strength I'll mention about this book is it becomes like a race against time. Barbara Atkins needs to solve this crime. If she doesn't give a definite answer about whether there'll be a culling or not, then other characters in the town, they're going to just go and do it themselves anyway. You get that impression. And I think Barbara, the character, realizes that. So she's kind of hampered by herself in a way by being so careful. She wants to be careful, cross those T's and dot those I's. She doesn't want to give, an idea of a culling. Doesn't give authority to have a culling when there shouldn't be one. But other characters in the town are pressing the issue, so it's a race against time to find the truth before it happens. So you have all these things that are great in this story. I mean, it's a great murder mystery, great cold case mystery as well, a great horror book, but also it redefines vampire lore in this story. The author's taken vampire lore and changed it a little bit just to make it more interesting and make it fit in this world she's created. So in this book, vampires aren't invulnerable and they're not immortal. They do die eventually. And in this book, natural death for vampires is very long and very painful. So we see that vampires can suffer and makes vampires seem human in a way, makes them seem real, and it gives you empathy for vampires in this book. Also, vampires just aren't super strong. They can't turn into bats. They're not sparkly. They're not cutesy, your teenage daughters and sons and that aren't going to go and try to date vampires all the time. But one thing about the vampires is vampires do live longer than humans. They can, be more resistant to illness and disease, that sort of thing. And certain people in this world, in this book, are attracted to that. So you do have the idea, the concept of humans forming relationships with vampires and going to live with them to be turned by vampires, to become vampires. That exists in this world, in this story. So all those things, all those elements of vampire lore, those tweaks, those changes, I think make the whole book stronger. They make you empathize, they make you relate to vampires in certain ways. They make the vampires seem more real in this world as well. Barbara is the detective in this story, coming to investigate a vampire crime, and I like her in this book a lot. What I like about her is she's written to be like a real person, average person. She's not super fit. She's not super smart. She's not, super great with firearms. She's an average person. And that just makes more sense, I think, in a book like this, in this world, because everything about this book is taking, big ideas and making it average. I don't mean average as like an average book. This book is average. I mean making the characters, the setting, everything feel everyday. Even though things are extraordinary, vampires are extraordinary, what's going on in the book may be extraordinary, that sort of thing. But it's all tied up into kind of everyday occurrences, like an everyday murder mystery, an everyday cold case. Everything kind of feels everyday in the story. And having Barbara written in this certain way just ties into the book so cleverly and just makes her feel so real in the book. Tucker is the ex-sheriff who's brought in to help Barbara in this story when the current sheriff is injured. I like his character a lot. I like that he's built up slowly in the story. We get introduced to Tucker early on. And when we first meet Tucker, we don't realise he's going to be a big part of the story, but he is. And with his storyline, it's like a storyline of redemption in a way. He's trying to right a wrong. And I like that. It gives him growth. It gives this character a chance for the reader to empathise with the character, to want this character to succeed, to see what happens with the character, what's going to happen next, that sort of thing. And it engages you with the character so much more. Colleen is the self-proclaimed reverend in this town. And as a character in this book, she's there to be divisive. She's there to lure humans to a certain thoughts about vampires, to make other people think vampires are dangerous and deadly and should be destroyed. There are reasons for her doing that in the book. You find out what that is. But as a character in the story, they're putting everything aside about who she is and what she's doing in the story. As a character, she's really well written. She has secrets. She has a history that's making her act in certain ways in the story. And when you find out what the history is, you start to understand it. You understand her more as a character. You even start to empathise with her a little bit, even though what she's doing can be seen as just awful sometimes in the story. You understand the thought process and the reason behind that. And I like her as a character, not because I like what she's doing, but she's engaging. And what she does just kind of drags you into the story even more. And there are more surprises about her at the end of the book. I won't say what they are, but as a character in this story, she's a standout, is engaging. I think a character that you'll think about when you read this story, even when you finish the book. This book was so well written. The setting, the whole concept, the world building, the fact that you got a vampire story, a vampire horror story centered around a murder mystery. I think that's an amazing choice. It takes vampire stories in a different direction. I think it's so well written, so cleverly written, and the characters were brilliant. I rate this a 5 out of 5. I recommend this so much. I think you have to be a horror fan to enjoy this though. I don't think, a mystery fan or a thriller fan will enjoy this story. I think a horror fan will. On my channel, I review many horror books. If you enjoy horror, check out my channel and subscribe. On the screen now is a link on the video for a book I'm sure you'll enjoy.